They were the shimmering stars of Hollywood's golden age, worshipped on screen, whispered about off it. Behind the velvet curtains and dazzling premieres lay a hidden world of scandal, seduction, and carefully guarded secrets. These women weren't just icons, they were survivors of an industry that both adored and devoured them. In a time when image was everything and silence was survival, their names echoed through casting couches, gossip columns, and bedroom doors. This is the untold story of 16 legendary actresses whose sexual lives became as notorious as their fame, whether by choice, coercion, or the ruthless machinery of old Hollywood. Ava Gardner, the most irresistible woman in Hollywood and the one who never belonged to anyone. She arrived in the spotlight like a thunderstorm, wild, beautiful, impossible to tame. Ava Gardner didn't just turn heads, she turned lives upside down. Her southern drawl and emerald eyes masked a soul that refused to be caged, not by studios, not by husbands, not by convention. Mickey Rooney called her his bride, briefly. Artie Shaw tried to mold her. Frank Sinatra? He loved her with a fire that nearly consumed them both. But for Ava, love was never about possession. She tasted fame, but spat out the rules. While the studio system tried to craft her into a lady, she lit cigars with their scripts and danced barefoot through their expectations. The men who came into her life were legends, and so were the scandals they left behind. Kings, bullfighters, musicians, all drawn to her like moths to flame. But for every man who thought he had one Ava Gardner, she slipped through his fingers like smoke. And in the end, it wasn't the headlines or the heartbreaks that defined her. It was the silence she left in her wake. Unapologetic, unfinished, unforgettable. Lana Turner. She didn't chase fame. She was discovered sipping a soda. The rest? A storm of diamonds, desire, and danger. They called her the Sweater Girl, a teenage dream turned Hollywood siren, seemingly overnight. But Lana Turner was no innocent sweetheart. Beneath the soft curls and Technicolor smile was a woman who knew exactly how to wield her beauty and exactly what it cost. 8 marriages, studio-mandated cover-ups, tabloids that fed like wolves on her every move. And always the men, rich men, powerful men, dangerous men. She didn't just date legends, she collided with them. Tyrone Power, Howard Hughes, even a fling with a mobster whose name would be written in blood. And then came Johnny Stompanato, the jealous lover, the storm in her shadow. What happened that night in 1958 still echoes through Hollywood halls, a scream, a struggle, a shocking end behind a locked door. Her teenage daughter, her protector. The headlines were merciless. But Lana survived, she always did, reinventing herself with every scandal, rising from the ashes in satin and diamonds, always ready for her close-up. The camera adored her, even when the world didn't. Lana Turner wasn't just a star. She was a warning that beauty can be dangerous, especially when it knows its own power. Elizabeth Taylor. She didn't fall in love. She crashed into it over and over again. Elizabeth Taylor was more than a movie star. She was a walking tempest wrapped in diamonds and violet eyes. From the moment she stepped in front of a camera, the world was spellbound. But the real spectacle was never just on screen. She married 7 men. 2 of them were the same man. And every love story was a saga. Passionate, messy, public. When she loved hard. And when it ended, the wreckage made headlines. Eddie Fisher left America's sweetheart, Debbie Reynolds, for her. The backlash was biblical, but Elizabeth didn't flinch. And then came Richard Burton, the Welsh brute who matched her in wit, fire, and excess. Together, they drank champagne for breakfast, fought like warriors, and loved like gods. Their affair began on the set of Cleopatra and turned into one of the most infamous love stories of the 20th century. But Elizabeth Taylor was no victim of her passions. She was in command of her life, her image, and her legend. She wore scandal like a custom gown, jewelry like armor. She didn't play by Hollywood's rules. She rewrote them. And when the curtain closed, she didn't fade. She became eternal. Marilyn Monroe. She made the world laugh, dream, and ache, and no one ever really knew her. She was the blonde bombshell, the eternal fantasy, the woman who could stop time with a smile. But Marilyn Monroe wasn't just a sex symbol. She was a cipher, soft voice, soft curves, and secrets no one could quite touch. Born Norma Jean, she climbed from foster homes to flashing cameras, mastering the art of transformation. Studios painted her as ditzy and sweet, but behind the scenes, Marilyn was sharp, a reader of poetry, a student of method acting, a woman at war with the role she'd been assigned. The men in her life were giants: Joe DiMaggio, the American hero; Arthur Miller, the intellectual; and then the rumors. A president. Maybe two. Affairs whispered in shadows, denied in daylight, speculated in silence. She didn't just date power, she danced with it, sometimes in dangerous proximity. But fame is a fragile thing. Marilyn spent her life being seen, but rarely understood. And as the cameras clicked and the world applauded, behind her eyes was a woman still searching for peace, for truth, for love that didn't come with a script. She left behind more questions than answers. A legend not just of what she was, but of what she might have been. Joan Crawford. She didn't rise to the top. She clawed her way there, one headline at a time. Joan Crawford was not made, she was forged. Out of poverty, out of steel, out of sheer will. She didn't ask for fame, she demanded it. And when Hollywood tried to control her, she looked it straight in the eye and outlasted it. Every frame she appeared in was a performance of power. Arched eyebrows, clipped voice, the kind of beauty that didn't flirt, it threatened. She married for love, for strategy, for survival. Douglas Fairbanks Jr., Frank Catone, the Pepsi-Cola executive, each man part of the empire she was building. But the gossip didn't stop at the altar. Joan's name swirled in rumors of affairs with actors, actresses, directors, tycoons. Her ambition knew no gender and no bounds. She wasn't a woman in Hollywood. She was a force against it. Yet power came at a price. The spotlight that once adored her turned cruel. Stories surfaced, stories she never confirmed, never denied. Stories that blurred the line between myth and truth. But through it all, she remained unshaken, immaculate, untouchable. Joan Crawford wasn't made for softness. She was made for legend. And legends don't fade, they burn. Jean Harlow. She lit up the screen like lightning and vanished just as fast. Before Marilyn, before Monroe was even a name, there was Jean Harlow, the platinum blonde who made America blush. She wasn't just Hollywood's first sex symbol, she was its first scandal wrapped in silk. With a wink, a smirk, and a voice that purred danger, she made innocence feel like a lie. They called her the baby-faced vamp, a contradiction in heels. Men lined up on screen and off, hypnotized by the raw, unfiltered sensuality she carried like perfume. Howard Hughes made her a star. Clark Gable became her favorite co-star. But the headlines did the rest. Affairs, whispers, marriages that exploded before the ink was dry. She played gold diggers and seductresses, but off-screen, she was more complicated, a woman caught between the expectations of a puritanical America and a studio system that sold her like a fantasy. And just as the world was beginning to realize she wasn't just a sex symbol, she was a talent, Jean Harlow disappeared. Gone at 26, with a legacy that still haunts Hollywood like a glamorous ghost. She came like a flashbulb, dazzling, hot, and gone in an instant. But oh, what a burn she left behind. Tallulah Bankhead. She said what she wanted, did who she wanted, and never once asked for permission. Tallulah Bankhead didn't walk into Hollywood. She crashed through the front doors with a martini in one hand and a scandal in the other. With her deep, smoky voice and piercing wit, she was as famous for her performances as for the trail of chaos and charm she left behind. Born into Southern aristocracy, she had money, power, and a name. But Tallulah wanted something more intoxicating: freedom. On stage, she was electric. Off stage, she was pure wildfire. She drank like a sailor, swore like a gangster, and seduced anything or anyone that caught her eye. Her lovers? Countless. Her gender preference? Irrelevant. Clark Gable, Billie Holiday, Greta Garbo. Rumors swirled like cigarette smoke, and Tallulah laughed through them all. She was once quoted saying, "My only regret in life is that I didn't have more lovers." That wasn't a punchline, it was a mission statement. Studios tried to contain her, but Bankhead wasn't built for boxes. She lived out loud, too loud for censors, too raw for the silver screen. But she didn't care. Fame was never her goal. Liberty was. Tallulah Bankhead didn't just break Hollywood rules, she burned the book and poured herself another drink. Mae West. She didn't just talk dirty, she built an empire with her wink. Before Hollywood even knew what to do with a woman like Mae West, she'd already written, produced, and starred in her own plays, banned in several cities for being too bold, too sexual, to her. While other actresses played coy, Mae came out swinging, hips first, punchlines second. Her voice was slow, sultry, unforgettable. Her walk, a masterclass in suggestion. And her words, loaded with innuendo, aimed like arrows at a prudish world that couldn't look away. "When I'm good, I'm very good," she once said. "But when I'm bad, I'm better." She didn't chase men, they lined up. Boxers, mobsters, studio heads, young actors half her age. And yet, she never let romance define her. May was always in control. She didn't belong to Hollywood. Hollywood bent to her. When the censors came calling, she gave them a smile and another scandal. When studios tried to silence her, she cashed her checks and said it louder. She wasn't just a sex symbol, she was a strategist in satin. Mae West didn't play the game. She invented it, then purred her way to the top, one eyebrow raise at a time. Clara Bow. She had it, and the whole world wanted a piece. Clara Bow didn't just light up the silent screen, she set it on fire. With her wide eyes, unfiltered energy, and raw sensuality, she became America's first girl, the face of the jazz age, the symbol of wild youth and untamed desire. But behind the flapper fringe and magnetic smile was a girl from Brooklyn, born into poverty, chaos, and secrets. Hollywood didn't make Clara bow, it devoured her. Studios pushed her into the spotlight, the press tore her apart, and the public couldn't get enough. She was adored, yes, but she was also hunted. The rumors were relentless. Lovers, orgies, scandals, most untrue, some exaggerated, all designed to turn a vulnerable young woman into tabloid gold. She was linked to actors, directors, producers, any man who dared stand too close. But Clara wasn't the predator. She was the prey. What they never understood was that Clara didn't act. She felt everything, too deeply. Her fame was fast, furious, and nearly fatal. When talkies arrived, the machine tossed her aside. And so, she walked away, before it could finish the job. Clara Bow wasn't built for Hollywood's games. She was real in a world of masks, and for that, they never forgave her. Hedy Lamarr. They called her the most beautiful woman in the world. What they missed was the mind that could outthink them all. When Hedy Lamarr walked into a room, conversation stopped. Her face flawless, her accent hypnotic. To the world, she was a goddess sculpted in celluloid. But beneath the surface was a genius. Not a metaphor, not a compliment, a literal genius. Born in Austria, she escaped a marriage to a controlling arms dealer and fled Nazi Europe straight into Hollywood's open arms. She starred in films that made headlines and stirred censors, including one that showed what no actress had dared before. But what Hedy truly revealed came not in front of the camera, but at a cluttered workbench in her free time. While men pursued her for pleasure, she was quietly inventing technology, including a frequency hopping system that would become the foundation for modern Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. That's right. The woman sold as a fantasy was building the future in secret. And yet, Hollywood only saw the lips, the eyes, the curves. Her lovers were many, actors, tycoons, millionaires, but few saw past her silhouette. She gave the world her face and her body. What it missed was her mind. Hedy Lamarr wasn't just beautiful. She was brilliant and far too rare for the world she dazzled. Barbara Payton. She had the looks of a goddess and a life that unraveled like a noir script. Barbara Payton stepped into Hollywood with bombshell beauty and the kind of raw allure that couldn't be taught or contained. She had what studios wanted: blonde hair, bold curves, and a face that screamed trouble in the best way. But behind the velvet gowns and camera flashes was a woman spiraling toward a legend no one would envy. She starred alongside big names, Gary Cooper, James Cagney, and held her own. But soon, her off-screen drama began to eclipse everything else. The studios couldn't script what came next, a love triangle turned violent between two jealous men, actor Frank Catone and rugged star Tom Neal. Blood was spilled, faces were broken, careers destroyed. But Payton? She became tabloid gold. The scandal marked her. Roles dried up, headlines turned cruel, and Hollywood, always hungry for fresh faces, moved on. But Barbara didn't. She descended from red carpets to Skid Row, from penthouses to police blotters. A woman once worth thousands per picture reduced to mere dollars a night. Yet through it all, there was still that spark, in photos, in memories, in the haunting what if of it all. Barbara Payton wasn't just a fallen star. She was a mirror held up to the darkest corners of Hollywood, where beauty is worshipped until it isn't. Zsa Zsa Gabor. She didn't look for headlines, she was the headline. Zsa Zsa Gabor arrived in Hollywood like a champagne cork, loud, sparkling, and impossible to ignore. With her thick accent, razor-sharp wit, and diamonds for days, she wasn't just a star. She was a one-woman spectacle. Married 9 times, she famously quipped, "I am a marvelous housekeeper. Every time I leave a man, I keep the house." It was more than a punchline, it was a philosophy. Love for Zsa Zsa wasn't about happily ever after. It was about being adored, adorned, and in charge. She romanced millionaires, actors, playboys, and princes, sometimes all in the same season. Paparazzi followed her like moths to a chandelier, capturing her furs, her feuds, her unforgettable one-liners. And she loved it. Zsa Zsa didn't run from scandal. She waltzed right through it in heels. But beneath the sparkle was a woman who knew the game better than anyone. Hollywood wanted fantasy? She gave them a living, breathing caricature of glamour. And somehow, even when the cameras tried to mock her, she stayed one step ahead. Always fabulous, never forgotten. Zsa Zsa Gabor wasn't trying to fit in. She was the mold-breaking original. In a town built on illusions, she became her own dazzling truth. Rita Hayworth. They turned her into a fantasy, but she was never allowed to be real. When Rita Hayworth danced across the screen in Gilda, peeling off a single glove, the world stopped breathing. She became the ultimate siren, sultry, radiant, untouchable. But the woman underneath the image? She was quietly drowning in a role she never asked to play. Born Margarita Cancino, she was reshaped by the studio system. Her name changed, her hairline raised, her accent softened. Hollywood didn't want who she was. It wanted who it could sell. And Rita? She let them sell her, until there was nothing left that felt like her own. Men fell hard and fast. Orson Welles married her and couldn't hold her. Prince Ali Khan gave her a title, but not a home. For all the diamonds, champagne, and adoration, what she longed for most was peace, the kind the screen could never give. They called her the love goddess, but off camera, she often felt like a ghost, admired, desired, but rarely understood. "Men go to bed with Gilda," she once said, "but they wake up with me." A sentence loaded with more truth than any of her lines ever written. Rita Hayworth was a masterpiece painted by others, stunning, seductive, and silently aching to be seen for more than her shadow. Veronica Lake. One lock of hair made her a legend, but it couldn't hold her life together. Veronica Lake didn't just enter spotlight, she slipped into it like a secret. With her icy stare and famous peekaboo hairstyle, she became the very definition of a femme fatale. Men melted, women copied her look, and Hollywood cashed in on her mystique. But behind the sultry voice and platinum waves was a woman unraveling. Fame came fast, and with it, pressure she never asked for. Studios pushed her into role after role, always the same, cold, seductive, untouchable. But Veronica was none of those things. She was fragile, sharp, and deeply human, a storm inside a glass shell. Her beauty became a gimmick. Even the U.S. government asked her to change her hairstyle during World War II because women working in factories were injuring themselves trying to imitate it. Just like that, what made her a star became disposable. Her marriages collapsed, roles dried up, and she slipped through Hollywood's fingers like smoke. Once the most talked-about woman in America, she ended up working as a bartender, unrecognized by the very faces she once hypnotized. Veronica Lake didn't fall from grace. She was pushed by a system that wanted glamour, not reality. And in the end, her story became more noir than any film she ever made. Linda Darnell. She was born to play goddesses, but never got to be the heroine of her own story. Linda Darnell looked like she had been sculpted for the screen. Flawless skin, deep eyes, and a presence that smoldered. Hollywood loved her face. Audiences adored her allure. But no one bothered to ask what she wanted. Pushed into modeling at 11, cast in films before she was even 16, Linda was never allowed to grow, only to glow. Directors told her how to walk, how to speak, how to smile. But behind those camera-ready eyes was a girl trapped in a gilded cage, trying to catch up with the woman the world expected her to be. She was cast as temptresses, angels, and tragic beauties, often all at once. But in real life, it was never just a role. Linda's romances were tangled, heartbreaking, often chosen more by circumstance than desire. Affairs with powerful men, failed marriages, broken trust. She gave everything, and still it was never enough. As the years passed and the roles slowed, Hollywood, the very machine that had sculpted her, turned its back. She searched for a comeback, for purpose, for a version of herself beyond the beauty they once worshipped. But time was cruel, and fate crueler. Linda Darnell didn't burn out. She was burned, slowly, quietly, beautifully, until there was nothing left but memory, and a face that still lingers like smoke on the silver screen. Marlene Dietrich. She didn't just cross lines, she erased them. Marlene Dietrich didn't arrive in Hollywood. She descended, cool, mysterious, and wrapped in shadows. With her deep voice, sculpted cheekbones, and knowing gaze, she became the very definition of elegance with an edge. But make no mistake, Marlene belonged to no one. She wore men's suits before it was allowed, loved who she loved without apology, smoked cigars in silk gowns, and sang in a whisper that could undo even the most disciplined hearts. She wasn't simply ahead of her time, she rewrote it. The list of her lovers is a map of power and beauty. Eric Maria Remarque, Gary Cooper, Edith Piaf, John Wayne. Yes, both genders and no shame. While others hid in the shadows, Marlene walked right through them, lighting the way with a smirk and a cigarette. Hollywood didn't quite know what to do with her. Too bold, too European, too unwilling to play the innocent. So she leaned into it, became an icon of androgyny, allure, and open rebellion. While the studio system built dreams, Dietrich dared to be real, even when it scared them. She was desire in a tuxedo, mystery in heels, strength behind a velvet curtain. And long after the credits rolled, Marlene Dietrich remained exactly what she always was: untouchable, unforgettable, and completely in control. They were more than silver screen sirens. They were women, bold, brilliant, complicated, navigating a world that demanded perfection and punished authenticity. Behind every scandal was a story. Behind every headline, a human being. Old Hollywood gave them fame, but often stole their peace. And yet, they carved their names into history, not just for how they looked, but for how they endured. If these stories moved you, if you saw beyond the glamour into the grit, the pain, and the power, then you're in the right place. Subscribe for more deep dives into the legends who shaped pop culture, broke the rules, and left behind more than just a legacy. Because here, we remember the women behind the myth.